Should we talk about Duke wanting court storming to be banned?
Oh my, I saw something on like rolling on the bottom of the ticker there. I was just like, it's so stupid. Like, one, it's already banned. It is banned. It's just like we're not draconian about banning it, you know?
All
Like, what do you
right.
want everybody to get arrested that does it? Like, it's one of the coolest parts of our sport, honestly.
All right. Let me make sure we're live. It looks like we are. We are.
Having fun, man. I'm having a lot
We
of
are
fun out
having
here after not so
fun.
much fun last. I'm glad we had a week to decompress from that one, honestly.
Yeah, we have a lot to talk about.
Oh
We
yeah.
need to make sure we
You got the box score and everything.
yeah, I'm ready. I'm just waiting. Okay, I see. Somebody's commenting, so I
Oh
guess
yeah, let me put the Reddit post up real quick. I forgot to do
all right. Ready when you are. And that was fun.
that.
Sometimes good things happen when it seems like everything's falling apart.
I mean, it gave it some extra oomph for sure that we were so angry for most of the game, or at least I was.
We played our tails off, that's for sure. Even when we were struggling, we played hard. Easy MVP discussion this night.
Oh yeah.
Jackson, we're one game out of first place.
FYI on the chat there. I have like a plan.
Okay,
You'll see, you'll see.
man, we got plans.
I guess the post game
The
is
boy,
on.
the man is back.
There it is.
Wait, you don't enjoy us taking 20 minutes to get to MVP discussion when you're not on the pod?
Yeah, no, y'all do. Yeah, I'm like, are they
We're,
ever gonna do it?
we're terrible. Uh, where's Canoe Man and Pocket Watch?
We got Ben C in the chat. So we got some people. I did the math. We were like, I'll do it when we started. I might encourage more people to come to YouTube. It's like less than 1% of our audience sometimes is in
Yep,
the chat live,
yep.
but that's just how it is. Growing, we're growing. All right. Well, I got the Reddit in there, so I'm ready whenever. 21-point victory, right? Yep.
Yep, I'm
All
ready.
right. All right. Let's do it.
Three, two.
All right. We are coming into this podcast with a 21-point victory against Georgia in Athens all night long. We played 6 players on that court, and we still came out with a 21-point victory. In my opinion, maybe one of the most impressive victories of the year. We had to make every shot. We had to work this hard. If you'd missed the game and you think 21 points on the road against UGA, okay, yeah, I mean, UGA is not like the best team in the SEC, and we have a good team, but without Jalen on the road, and the refs were absolutely terrible. Our players were in foul trouble the entire night, and it was all the players you're most worried about: Broom, Cheney, CBM, Cardwell, all playing with 3 fouls pretty much the entire second half. It felt like it was brutal out there. We were angry for a lot of it. And as soon as the refs stopped playing that ticky tacky foul they were doing, we blew them the absolute mess out. It was a ton of fun. So many players to pick from. But the big question I have, Matt, are we having fun again?
We're having fun. We got our bye week. I said before this game, any win is a good win, but I think in this spot without Jalen, you set it up nicely on the road, and I'll talk about some stuff later about how other teams have done in Athens this year. This is a very impressive second half. A lot of grit, a lot of composure when things were going really bad. And honestly, I think our coaches just did an amazing job tonight, and the 10 players who played as well did a great job.
I mean, so many players stepped up in this one. I mean, we were really worried. Jalen's out. Let's address that at the top too. If you listen to our last podcast, we were ready to do a Jalen Williams funeral. I mean, we were texting on the side, being like, "Hey, it's a bye week, midweek. If we find out Jalen's out for the season, do you guys want to hop on and do like a thank you Jalen podcast?" Ends up, he's gonna be all right. We're not exactly sure what game he'll come back for, but it sounds like he'll be back even before the SEC tournament, which is great because this team, the way they played tonight, we could turn our way towards March, and that's what we're still ring chasing to an extent. We're 9-4 in the league, or 10-4 in the league right now, just one game out from everybody else. Bama went down to Kentucky, so we're still in it for a tie in the SEC. Probably, I wouldn't hold your breath for a solo or anything, but this was going to be a tough one on the road against UGA. And we have a really hard one against Tennessee coming up, but we're still in it. So we are going to chase, but really, I'm looking at a lot in March. And if Jalen can come back healthy in March, I'll be feeling pretty good, especially after tonight with some of the performances we saw.
Yeah, I mean, uh, to see this team go on the road without Jalen, and we had a bunch of guys playing in different spots, playing in different rotations, different positions, and to fight through it, it really felt all week to me like a classic Bruce Pearl scenario. Bruce has always done a just an unbelievable job of getting his guys ready to go, chip on their shoulder, anytime any sort of adversity hits. And I just saw a graphic as they're talking about this is the second most double-digit wins in Auburn history already. The number
The
one is the
Flying
99
Tigers.
99 team had five more. This is more double-digit wins than our Jabari Walker
If
team
that
had.
if that shows you how much those Flying Tigers 99 too. I mean, we had Cliff Ellis on. Go back and listen to our Cliff Ellis podcast. I really wish we would have honored that team this year and Cliff Ellis as he just retired. But he brought that up in our podcast. They just blew the mess out of teams out game after game after game after game. Like that's why he's like, we had one of the best teams ever. And to watch us blow so many teams out and it's still 5 behind them, that's crazy.
They had 26. But Jackson, we've won every game by double digits that we've won.
And we're still 5 behind them.
We're still five behind them. So, but just a great job. I mean, Georgia is not bad. This is the
They've
first you
had
talk about
some,
making
yeah.
making history. Bruce had not beaten Mike White on the road once at Georgia and then 4 times at Florida. He was 0-5. So like little things like that matter. You talk about coaches that give him a hard time. Mike White's a good coach. It didn't work out at Florida. He didn't win enough like big time. They were always on the bubble. But Georgia is a much more dangerous team than they were in previous years. We hate it. And lost in all this NCAA tournament talk and Jalen talk. Now we get a chance to sweep Georgia at home with the final game of the year, which is huge for recruiting and for you talk about it all the time. We do not need Georgia building any momentum. It was a great chance to beat them in Athens today.
It felt like every time I looked up this year, though, Georgia's 5-9 in the league, but it felt like every time I looked up, they were playing tough against somebody that they were going to pull an upset off. I don't know if they actually did pull up any great ones this year, but it always felt like they played tough. So Mike White's going to have them playing tough. Hopefully they can't recruit, but you look at a game like this on the road, and it's easy to pick the MVP, man. You look at these stats. 5 3-pointers from Aiden Holloway. The Aiden Holloway come out game. I mean, come on, Matt. I was really letting Aiden hear it to start the game, but 5 3-pointers from Aiden, 15 points. He made some great passes too, kept the offense under wraps there when Trey didn't have that great of a game, really. I started the game off my usual Aiden criticisms of what he's shooting, everything, but those 3 started going in, and you just it's one of those elements where if Aiden can play like that, all of a sudden our March and our season's completely different.
Yeah, and if you've listened to the pod, that's what I've been saying this whole time. I mean, when Jalen goes down, what are our options to help? Now, Chaney played great, CBM played great. We'll talk about all those guys, but Aiden's 3-point shooting ability is one of the elite skills that this team has. Even if he's shooting, I don't care what he's shooting in SEC play. Watch his shot. He is an elite shooter, and it was perhaps the biggest thing. I mean, Chaney played great. This was a great confidence builder for him. But the biggest thing for this team moving forward is to have Aiden Holloway be a threat from the 3-point line and run a very, very clean point guard game. I thought the team played a lot better with him on the floor than Trey. Trey's played much better in most of the games this year. But tonight, Aiden was the better point guard, not just shooting, of moving the ball, getting everybody involved.
So Aiden, I guess, cheers to you. Oh, wait, little bait and switch. Now, you thought if Aiden came out with 5 3-pointers in a game that on the road against UGA MVP, but another player went off even harder. With Jalen Williams out, Chaney Johnson with 16 points. I couldn't believe it. We did not see this all year from Chaney. I mean, he won an MVP against the University of Alabama Huntsville, I believe, against his team he played for the last 4 years. And he comes into this one with Jalen out. And sometimes it's just the shots don't always, you can only have so many shots go around. And Jalen Williams takes those. The minutes are less. With the minutes up, Chaney Johnson hit 16 points. They were really good shots a lot of the times, too. Great drives, through contact on the free throw line, hit a three, man. Chaney Johnson, like, sorry, Aiden. Chaney Johnson stepped up bigger than you even.
It was a Jalen lookalike. He 16 points on 9 shots. He was a hesitant shooter at times, didn't really force anything. No turnovers, really solid play. I thought we ran a couple things for him, but it just felt like he was comfortable in the flow of the offense. We've known he has potential. You've heard it all since beginning of the season, but on the road, getting thrown in there, it was to the point where he was only playing 8 or 10 minutes a game. He played 26 tonight, played really, really well, and he was part of the stretch, the group in the second half that really flipped this game. And you feel, I mean, it's one game, just like Aiden's shooting. One game does not flip a streak by itself. You got to put it together. But I do love that this was a chance for Chaney to play on the road in a big spot, and he played really, really well before we go to Knoxville.
But Chaney Johnson, sorry, Aiden. Chaney Johnson, I'm pouring out my red mount shot here. I think Chaney. Oh, wait.
Oh, wait.
Chaney, not even you could beat out what Chad Baker Mazzara did tonight. Incredible. 25 points, 2 of 3 from 3, 8 of 12 from the field, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, a block. Aiden, you got your MVP stolen from you. Chaney Johnson, you got your MVP stolen from you because Chad Baker Mazzara had a career high, amazing game. All the potential you thought that Chad Baker Mazzara had, he showed it tonight at all facets of the court, stepped up when we needed somebody to step up the most. I mean, Chad Baker, man, he went from CBM to ICBM. It was a pleasure to watch. Ribs and Whiskey, I noticed in the game thread on Reddit, called him 70% cat because there was some really crazy drives he had this game where he hung in the air, long arms out, finished it in just the oddest ways that no other player could have finished, man. I'm sorry I had to bait and switch you guys, but there was so many good players in this MVP that, man, CBM just stole from those other two players.
Yeah, great lead up. Janai Broom 16 and 13 casually too. Chad Baker Mazzara was incredible. We've really notate, he's been up and down in SEC play in terms of his production. First start this year, getting slid in, we haven't talked about you. We tinkered so much, Jackson. We did so many different things. And one of them was starting him in the starting lineup instead of Chris Moore. And he was great early. He got us off to a good start hitting shots. But to me, 7 of 7 at the line. Shout out Ben. Like, he's a great free throw shooter. He gets the fouls. We know he gets bullied a little bit, but when you play offense like this, it doesn't matter. And to me, the reason he's the MVP, even in the first half, I said it was over if we win, and I never do that. He is the MVP not only because he's making shots, 4 assists to lead the team, I believe, 0 turnovers, and 5 big rebounds, helping out with Jalen out. He did all the little things so well. I loved his energy. He was he is a great teammate. You can tell he's a great teammate. He's very encouraging to everybody. He's having a blast playing on this team. This is the story you love, right? Guys like this who get to a spot like this, and it is just, the lane has just opened for him to play meaningful basketball on a team like this, and he is making the most of it. He was terrific on both ends, and I thought he and Katie Johnson, their swagger, their crazy brothers type thing, was one of the things that swung this second half.
He said to the crowd at one point, I'm him. The announcers were talking about, and he was him. And we haven't had a him like that in a while. A guy that can win all over the court. I mean, how many? I've been begging for it. We've been talking about the podcast for a couple years now. A guy that can drive to the basket, finish through contact, get those free throws, and hit a three, and in transition, dribble it up the court, finish. It's like all facets of the game. CBM played amazing tonight. That's why he ended up with 25. It was so cool to see us switch on to him to say, just go do something. And every time he did something, either he made a great pass or he finished with a great shot. And it was just fantastic to watch when we just really haven't had that in a while. I mean, I've been singing his praises all year. He just showed that potential. It's to say, you can just tell some of these players have a different skill set when they're out there. The game is slower for them. They can get up there and finish through contact when other guys look a little frantic. CBM's just got it. Whatever that it factor is, that kind of guy that's going to play, I think, in the NBA at some point. I think he's going to be there. He's just got a different kind of body. Sure, he needs to put some pounds on or whatever, but maybe he won't be a starter in the NBA or some long-term career. I think he's got something that other people don't have on this team.
Do you think Jalen will play in the NBA?
Probably not. I mean, he's played great, but it feels college, and
Just
CBM
curious.
feels
That's how I
different.
feel about CBM. But I mean, I'm not
Yeah,
trying to
maybe.
downplay. I just think he's look, I can't I'm not gonna take anything away. We're not gonna talk about Tennessee. If CBM does 60% of this in Knoxville against the kind of physicality he's gonna face, I will be I will not focus on his detriments at all the rest of the season on this podcast. Like, because he was truly remarkable tonight. He's an easy MVP. And again, I just want people to know it's not the career high in scoring for me. It's all the other stuff that he's been getting slowly better at and feeling more and more comfortable in the rotation, starting with that starting group. I know it's a small thing, but he was thrown out there on the road, and Georgia was hitting everything the first couple of minutes.
I mean,
And
the
CBM
announcers,
kept it up
the
with it.
the announcers were even talking double team on CBM. That's how good CBM played tonight. They were saying, "Do you double team CBM?" And there was several times where he drove the ball in there and they crashed on him. The entire team was focusing on him, and he made great passes out of that to get us open looks from three and around the court. Anytime he had the ball in his hand, the entire team was focusing on him. We haven't had a guy like that in a while. I know Janai Broom's great. I know Jalen Williams is great, but they have not, like, defensive planning, people not freak out when they had the ball. I mean, they scored on them. They maybe should freak out sometimes when they have the ball. But tonight, the other team started freaking out when CBM had the ball. It was really fun to see how it opened up the game for everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
On Reddit, we got for MVP votes. WDE20 says Chad, easy. AU Bear, legend, says CBM, no question. Ribs and Risky, Pat Adams, two separate double texts in the first half. Dude was cooking. I hate Pat Adams so much. It's so bad when we know the ref's name. Over, like, before the game even starts, we're talking about who's reffing the game. You know it's bad when you know who the ref is before the game even starts. Absolute terror. We'll talk more about the refs down the stretch because it's like easy to let them off the leash because we pulled this game off and won it in blowout fashion, but they do not deserve to be let off the leash. Uh, TG Rogan 21 said no need to count. CBM wins hands down, but a nice honorable mention to Cheney and Broom for playing hella minutes in the second half. AU Art, if someone doesn't vote CBM, I will fight you. That's true. Hey, he might. I hope you got at the beginning of the podcast when I did my little bait and switch. I hope that wasn't too cheesy, but I just had to. I felt like we had to honor those other two players. And you're right about Broom also. A classic. We're learning now a classic Janai Broom performance where the first half is lackluster, and the second half he turns it on and just gets his every game. And that is like really underrated that he always seems to get his at some point in the game. And a lot of times it's been the second half.
Jackson, he's average. I had no idea. And I mean, we have a podcast. We should probably be paying attention to this. They showed up before the game. He's averaging 16 and a half and 8.5 a game. I
In
mean,
college basketball,
that
that's incredible.
it really is. So, I
He's
mean,
not
just
getting the love
credit
he
to,
deserves. He's not getting
and
the love he
so many,
deserves.
Ben was on this, so many halves that he just gets like nothing. And then you're like, oh, and with any other player, with Jalen right over the years, like, oh, well, it's going to be one of those nights for Jalen. He's not going to, and Broom, he has expanded his game in such a way to be a threat from behind the arc and to be a better, I would say, a more versatile defender. And he's got the array of post moves, and he's just, he is so comfortable playing. It's a testament to him. He's gotten so much better from last year. He was really good last year, but he's become an even more dangerous player this year.
It's been really fun to watch, honestly, and it'll be a classic another player when they're gone that we just like it's a black hole and we forget what we had when we had it.
Yeah.
Especially Janai for some reason. Maybe we'll break that down later in the pod or something about why it is that we underrate almost even amongst ourselves, like how great he's played.
It's because
But
he's not the flying tiger that everybody
yeah,
else is. And but it almost makes what he's doing even more incredible, right? That he's not a crazy athlete. He's not like this CBM weird alien guy. He's just a really good basketball player who's become such a threat from different parts of the floor.
he's got a little bit of old man YMCA in him, right?
Yep.
Like some of those crazy moves. He's just hitting those threes now, which is just incredible. And we're kind of even starting to underrate that. in the chat. We got Ben C, Pocket Watch, Ben, our co-host, Ben Young's in there. Mr. Beautiful, got some CBM votes. But I think, we were talking before we went live. I like to start the show with the MVP. So we're going to go ahead and break out the Red Mount vodka here. We're going to pour ourselves a little shot and toast up CBM for his MVP. Cheers.
Cheers. Great job, CBM. Friend of the pod.
And
Family loves the pod. Shout out.
happy birthday, Charles Barkley. His birthday was this week, I believe, on Wednesday or Thursday.
That's right.
Which
that's really the white whale, by the way. If anybody can help us get with Charles.
Little Charles statue on there. Now I heard today we got a Obby statue now. Is that right? You see that?
Yeah. I have.
Where else do you want to take the discussion now? Do you want to talk the refs now? Do you want to talk?
Let's talk some game stuff, refs, and then we'll go players, I guess. Okay. We shot 62% overall in this game on the road. So I think we have to acknowledge 54% from three. And
Dylan was hitting. Even Dylan Cardwell was hitting 50% from three from Dylan Cardwell. The biggest F you in your face. Screw this game. Screw the refs. Screw Georgia. Dylan Cardwell swishes a 3-pointer to end the game. That was like the biggest and there was a lot of Auburn fans in Athens too. When KD went out, there was a KD. I heard it's great to be an Auburn Tiger. And when that 3 went in from Dylan, we might as well have been in Neville Arena the way that crowd erupted, which was just amazing.
It's amazing. And don't forget how many of these guys are from Georgia. Don't think for a minute it doesn't matter. Aiden, KD, Dylan, at least. I'm trying to think. There might be some more.
Denver Jones, is he from Atlanta also?
No, Denver's from Newmarket. Shout out North Alabama. Anyway, so just don't underestimate how much that can matter to some people. So we shot really well. We missed a couple of front ends of 1-and-1s in the first half. We've watched a lot of basketball, Jackson. We had an opportunity to be up 15, 18 in the first half. It stuck at 11, and then we kind of held on for the first part of the second half. It got close late. But overall, we shot really well from every stretch. Weird game in that we only turned Georgia over 6 times. I guess you would argue, and I would agree, that the fouls had a lot to do with that. Like, we just couldn't.
Foul. And we had to completely change how we played defense. They started feasting in the second half early underneath the basket because Cardwell and Broome just could not do anything. They had to go straight up and down. And even then, they kind of had to even get away because they were going mostly straight up and down to begin with anyways. And that's what they were getting the fouls on. So they started feasting for briefly down low on 2, and the announcers are, oh my god, yeah, just feed them down. Oh, they're doable. I was like, no, we're giving them those 2s essentially because we cannot have a 4th foul on Broome right now.
Yeah, but we won on the glass. We won slightly bench points in the paint. 17-3 in fast break points is huge. 5-2 in blocks. 16-5 assists. I think Ben and I and this whole podcast has been ahead of this early in the season. You can go back and listen. When we move the ball, now you have to hit shots to get assists. So they are kind of connected. But 16 assists, we're leading the SEC in assists, top 10 in the country. And that's a number that we need. We need to pick a number. Maybe it's 12, 15. I think we're averaging somewhere around 16, 17, 18 a game. We had 16 tonight. But Ben was on this. Georgia didn't have an assist till the last minute of the first half. I thought our defense was terrific on the perimeter. I know our guards have been given they're all getting better, I think. And Georgia's not that good. We have to acknowledge Georgia's not what we're going to face Wednesday. But I thought our defense was really good, which made the fouling situation even more frustrating because it felt like we were doing a great job. We ran some zone wrinkles to really muck up the top of the key and a lot of the stuff Georgia was running. And it just felt like they were getting bailed out time and time again. You called it on Lior. He had a great sequence and gets called for it. It just felt like that was happening all night.
It all comes down to start with hitting open shots. We didn't do that against Kentucky, and that's what killed us. So first you hit open shots. Then you get open shots, which we got open shots from a great passing around. So that's why you end up getting to hit the open shots.
Right.
And then we had great drives setting up those open shots too. We had somebody like CBM that was finishing through contact. Just overall, the offense was so smooth. It was so fun to watch. We hit everything, it felt like. Every time we went down the floor, we were finishing with something, with Chaney, with CBM, with, I don't know, everybody. It felt like Denver. Everybody on the team was doing something. So that's why it was so frustrating to watch on the other end of the court when they kept getting all these foul calls. And when the fouls started building up, because it just felt like, wow, we were playing like the best game we could possibly play. And we were up. We were up to 10, 11 points. We kept it to 11 and a half, which was a big deal. We're always trying to keep it within 10 before the half comes. That's always my goal. If we're losing, just get it under 10. We'll have a kind of
Mhm.
reset in the second half. So anytime, it kind of annoys me a little bit when I see some comments or text that's like, oh, we're up. It was no, no, no. Needs to be above 10 or they're going to go in with momentum that they got it below 10. How many times do we feel confident when it's like, gotta beat them
Well,
down the stretch here? And so we did. We got them to 11, but you just knew that like this foul trouble was going to bite us eventually. Luckily, in the second half, we played some really solid defense, and they still got theirs, but we didn't slow down on offense, so it didn't matter. We just kept hitting. They finally got down to like 5 at one point, and we just started hitting our threes again, and the refs started letting up a bit and stopped calling so much, and you noticed it very as soon as we went up again, like 10 plus, the refs
mhm.
started letting us play. Broom started getting blocks. Other players got to start locking guys down without fouls, and it was game over. We just blew them out the rest of the way.
There was a huge sequence. I need to go back and watch it. It was a 3-point game there for like 4 or 5 possessions where we scored and they would cut it to 3, and it just felt like it was on a teetering point in that game. And then something big happened. We flipped it. I know Katie hit an open 3 to go up 9. It was off some really good ball movement from Aiden maybe to CBM to him. And you're right. Once we got to that point, we kind of survived the run. We had fun. Flying Tigers came out. The rest of the half was about. I saw if you're looking on YouTube, Justin Ferguson on his little recap that I've got shared right now, 33-15 run the last 9.5 minutes of the game. So we really put our foot down. But up to that point, it was a 50-50 game, right? When you're watching it, it's like
When we were
this could
down to
go either
5,
way.
it did not feel good at all because we had
And,
all that foul trouble, and it was like I don't know, maybe a fourth into the second half, and I'm
yeah.
like, now you look at it and it's fine, but like all these fouls, they stopped calling fouls basically the last like half of the second half, really. But Janai had 3, Chad Baker had 3, Cheney Johnson had 3, Denver Jones had 3, Katie Johnson ended with 5, and the only guy that fell out of the game, but he had 3 early also. Dylan Cardwell had 3. It was all those that I'm reading out. They had all those pretty much at the start of the second half. I mean, some of them had that at the end of the first, others like the start of the second, and we were just holding our breath for most of the second half that they weren't going to get their fourth until we went on that run. And for some reason after
Mhm.
that, the refs stopped calling all these ticky-tacky stuff. I'm sure some would argue on the other side that, oh, we stopped fouling. I don't feel like that at all. Like we never did get that like super aggressive Auburn defense that we usually want because immediately the refs were calling ticky-tacky stuff. And then on top of that, it didn't hurt right away, but then eventually you were like, wow, that really did hurt. They called 2 different double techs that were really weak on 2 of our best players, on Broom and on Cheney or Chad Baker Mazzara. And they were
Yep.
both times so weak. I still don't even know what happened with Brooms. It just felt like one of those like early game. The refs are just gonna call something because they think it's gonna get scrappy, even though it hadn't really gotten scrappy yet. And it's just all right, whatever. But like we knew we needed them to stay out of foul trouble. So it kind of, and we started off with some fouls too. So we knew already a little bit by then that, oh no, that's going to hurt. He's got 2 already. I think by then Dylan Carwell maybe have already had 2 also. And it was like, oh no. But then when Chat Baker's
Well,
happened, it was like we already knew foul trouble was already started. And that was the stupidest one. There was just a little bit of chirping, like head to head thing. Chad Baker, I just like, I don't know how you call that on both. I don't know how you call it all one. I don't think it was tech for either. And then on top of that, I don't know how you call that one on Chad Baker. The other guy got in his face and put his forehead to him, and then that's a double. It's honestly bad leadership. It's like you can't punish, like somebody started it. Somebody started it, and you're punishing both players for something that somebody else started. It's like a bad teacher in school. Like you can't just like, there's this whole like no retaliation thing too, and it's true, but like it's bad refereeing that you didn't catch it before that. It's like to call double text, just especially 2 in a game, that's on you. I feel like that should be on the ref report card. You messed up if you had to call 2 different times a double tech.
and not only that, I mean, and look, the rest could say all they want that it shouldn't matter. If you've coached or like watched basketball, like it does matter. That was the second foul in the first half on both of those guys. And I don't know what it was for Georgia. Maybe it was the same. But second fouls in the first half are like pivotal. How many times have we seen a guy get a second foul? Like Cheney got his second foul with 15 minutes left in the first half, and he had to sit. I mean, he played really well around it. They put him back in, and he did a good job avoiding a third. But yeah, just silliness.
Third,
Terrible, like awful, awful stuff.
30
Unnecessary. Yeah.
31 free throws from Georgia to our 16. And they shot 80% from them too. So like just imagine what this game could have been without all these tic-tac fouls. Like, I really just like there are times that Auburn plays with this aggressive Bruce Pearl style defense that you're like,
Mhm.
okay, yeah, you guys like you're a little too turned up. You're making some silly fouls. This game just did not feel like that. It felt like there were some really dubious ones under the basket. It felt like there were some reach-ins that weren't quite reach-ins. There was one in particular I'm trying to remember right now. I think it was like coming into the basket, like a drive that like no one really touched the guy and he kicked his leg out. Oh, there was a 3-pointer that was terrible, right? On KD, where the guy is like fighting past the screen, doesn't touch the guy at all. I guess they call it landing space, but the guy kicked his leg out and they gave him 3 shots for that. And it was just the weakest 3-point foul I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, it was a very frustrating night. I blame Ben, our co-host Ben Young, because he talked about Pat Adams. Pat Adams, I guess, ref the Kentucky game and let him play a lot, like didn't give us many calls. Well, Pat Adams did the opposite at his crew tonight. They did the opposite, and they were calling. We've talked for years. I just don't think that helps Bruce teams at all. I think it hurts us more than other teams when they call everything. And it felt like you said, honestly, I'm shocked we only had 24 fouls to their 17 because it felt like we had 35.
Like I said, they stopped calling it down that stretch. And like I almost hate it. I almost hate a game. If we're gonna get blown out, I almost want it to be like record breaking. So like that was such an anomaly. That was record. I almost hate it when there's like these like little moments of like trash points at the end where foul discrepancy gets made up a little bit near the end because it just like ruins the narrative a little bit for me. But no,
Hey,
it was a terrible. Yeah.
one more point I just realized. We went on the road in a game we had to have and did never trailed, led the whole way,
Wow.
wire to wire.
I mean,
Tough to do.
we're definitely have some harder games, but with Jalen out, like every win we get with Jalen out, it's a big deal for me.
Well, and this guarantees a winning record in the SEC. So it's the 10th win in league play, which might sound not important, but if you've been around, that matters. And I think it's 4 out of 5 years we've had 10 plus wins, something like that in the SEC. Hard to do. And let me read off. I think I still have this. Let me read off the other results of teams that are at the top of the league in Athens. You ready? Ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee won by 6 in Athens. Let's get down here. Alabama won by 9 in Athens. South Carolina won by 10, and another one. Florida won by 6. So
Yeah,
that's
they
4.
played some tight games. They've played some
Yeah.
good games that just didn't happen for them. But like they've been a tough matchup for a lot of people this year so far,
Yeah.
especially in Athens. And you know how we played away, so it feels like we got some sort of like weird jinx where we played like an away game against Kentucky at home and then played like a home team at Georgia and Athens. So like you said, it's
Well,
also
you mentioned.
important.
Sorry, I keep cutting you off, but you mentioned how important this game is going to Knoxville. I mean, you lose to Kentucky. If you lose this one, look, Wednesday's going to be tough. It would be the best win of the year, in my opinion. I think Tennessee's probably the best team in the league. We had to have this one to stay in the race, all that good stuff, to keep building our resume, to get a good road win, but like to keep the negative energy away of the Jalen injury. And it was just one of those games in the schedule that you just really want to take care of business on. I was surprised we were 7 or 8 point favorites, but we played like we should have been.
And I think it's huge who won us the game and how we won it. To
Yes.
see Aiden hit some threes and look a little more confident, to see Cheney Johnson
And
play well on offense, to see CBM step up in a leadership role. We already knew CBM was a leader on this team. He already kicked him out of the locker room at one point to win a game. For him to also be a leader on the court, scoring wise and playing good defense too, making great assists, that's huge for this team, I think, going forward into March. How much do you think? We got blown out in Gainesville against Florida off their bye week. We have a late bye week, I feel like, in this part of the season. It's only like
latest one
latest
of
one.
anybody in the league.
We could have really used an earlier one. I feel like maybe before that Kentucky game would have been nice. But you come out of the bye week and blow them out. How much do you think this bye week like rest, especially since after the Jalen injury, we got to like, I'm sure, practice some of these sets with a different lineup than usual.
It's a new thing, this buy thing, and it was interesting. I guess that's what they did when they got rid of the old SEC Big 12 challenge we used to play in the middle of the conference season. It does seem to be playing a factor, and I know Bruce has been on record of some of the maybe ways it's kind of been unfairly spread out for everybody this year, but it did work out well, I think, in hindsight, to give us some time off. I know they gave the players like 2 full days off with nothing to do, which it's easy for us as fans to take for granted, right? When you're playing every 3 or 4 days, these high level SEC basketball games, like it's exhausting. We've seen guys wear down. Like I think that's been part of the struggle for Aiden as a freshman is like the physicality and just the level you have to be at. And you only get sometimes 1 or 2 days to recover, before you go to the next place. So I think it's a big factor. And I think if this is going to continue to be the schedule, I think that'll be one of the things we start to look at more when we do preseason look aheads, right? It's like, okay, when's your bye? Like, where does it fall? Who do you travel afterwards?
We felt like that Florida game was a trap game, just like looking at the schedule when we knew they were coming off their bye week and how all the games we had, the South Carolina game before that, the Kentucky game after that, like the Bama game before that, like we knew that was trap game and they got us good. So you just wish the bye week could have come some other time, but I think it did help a lot.
Can we talk about what we ended up doing without
Yeah.
Jalen, like rotation wise, real
I was
quick?
about to get into that. I love when we get on the same, but first I wanted to read the YouTube comments here. Ryan G says, team appears to have great chemistry. BP talked post game about how much the guys in the locker room like each other. Boys were having fun tonight. Great to see. Yeah, we love watching these guys. So easy to cheer for these guys. We'll talk later on too about one of our former players that stopped being as easy to cheer for and did something else tonight that made that even more. But like it's been easy to cheer for these guys, very cheerable guys, and like they're having fun out there and we're having fun watching them. Mr. Beautiful says, it's actually good for the team having Jalen sit out so others can step up. Yeah, I think we can talk about that for sure. That like it might be good that we have be forced into this tinkering a bit. But we talked so much in that Kentucky post game about what would we do, what players would we play, and what rotations. And so yeah, Matt, break it down for us, like what you saw out there.
Yeah, I was fascinated. I think the easy move would have been to play Chris more at the four or start him over Cheney even. Like it's easy now to say no, you would never do that, but Cheney hasn't exactly been inspiring a ton of confidence to be put in this spot. But they went the opposite, man. They not only they started CBM, which I think we expected, but well, by the way, and they started Aiden, which we've talked about how starting and finishing isn't or starting in backups on this team is not that important, right? Trey and Aiden are still going to play a lot no matter which way that is. But I do think that was somewhat intentional. And I think it was partially because Trey has not been as good the last couple of weeks. And I think it was partially just to try to mix it up because Aiden's been
Did
struggling.
did Chris Moore not play at all tonight?
He played one rotation off the bench in the first half.
Okay, the ESPN box score doesn't like I have the ESPN one pulled up too. Doesn't even have him on there. That's how less like how little after all the
Played
talk about what Chris Moore would do this game
3 minutes.
and how we might need him to step up and all that. He
So,
doesn't even show up on the ESPN box score in
so
3 minutes. That's
So,
crazy.
so here's what we did, and that's what's so interesting. We'll see if this is like just a matchup thing or if that's just the way things happen tonight. But he came off the bench, and from what I saw, played a little bit of three and a little bit of four for like a couple possessions. But really, they started Cheney, and Cheney did well. I would be really curious to see what their plan was if Cheney had really struggled. But he did get in foul trouble early. Remember, he had 2 fouls early. So
Everybody was.
we did go Twin Towers and we played Cardwell and Broom like you talked about. But what was interesting to me is that most possessions they were playing Janai at the four on offense, where he was more running some of the movements that Jalen would do. He's just a little more dynamic on the outside. He can shoot a little bit. But on defense, they were keeping Janai on the center and Dylan's athleticism in that zone on the wing, which I thought was brilliant. Like you don't see we did this kind of offense for defense thing with those two guys when they were on the floor
how
at the
many
same time, and it was
how
effective.
many how many minutes do you think they played together? Because like it was interesting. It was like I remember like texting, they're both in, and then like kind of losing them a bit. And maybe that's a great thing that I didn't like know I was getting exposed because you're right. It was weird to see who was playing on the offense under as the center versus who was playing defense on the center. And it was switched also that I would forget that the other one was still in
Yeah.
because they were playing like their traditional roles on vice versa parts of the court.
Yes, which credit to both of them for being able to do that. Again, it speaks to Janai's versatility and Dylan's defensive versatility, which we know about. To be able to do those things, it's good to have two veteran guys who can help. But they played together more than I thought they would. Honestly, I was not sure they would do it a ton. I bet they played 10 or 12 minutes together, if I had to guess. And
I very few times did I feel like I was like watching, oh, look, they're both in doing something like, because it would only be if like they were both crashing for a rebound or something. And that was about it. And that didn't happen that often. So I didn't feel like they got in each other's way at all. And it felt like the big thing would be that the offense looks not like defense. I feel good about with both of them out there, but you'd worry about the offense with, especially with Cardwell kind of hanging around when you also need to give Joe Knight his ability down low. So it's definitely interesting.
Here were my takeaways. Number one, Chaney played basically starter minutes despite having the early foul trouble. After that, he was solid the rest of the way. Um, More than solid, as we discussed. So he played more. Lior played more. Lior basically took Chris Moore's minutes in this game, and Chris Moore played the one or two rotations like Lior does sometimes, which I think is noteworthy. And it was more Cardwell, and I think you saw it. I think he was gassed at times playing 24 minutes because he usually plays,
Well, he got a cramp at one point near the end of the
yeah,
game.
yeah, and it was a little less rest for Janai than usual. And that was how it broke down. I mean, that was kind of what we chose to do with it. It, like you said, it was about to get real dicey. If let's say if
It felt like the
Janai had
dominoes, the Jenga blocks, like one more
right,
foul. Like there was some Georgia fans in the Reddit thread that were like, "Calm down." You remember? I was like, "Oh man, one of these like Jenga blocks comes out with a fourth foul, and this I don't even know what we would do. We planned for this, but we didn't plan for this plus foul trouble, probably. You know."
right.
I mean,
No,
we were
you're
talking
right.
about what was that backup center that came in that one time? What was his? We were talking about like, like early second half that he might be playing a little bit.
Yeah, he hasn't played at all in anything other than garbage time. But Darren Scott is the third scholarship center on the team. He's kind of redshirting this year almost. And it's good to have a third. You and I are big vocal supporters of at least having a body in case you need it, and we almost needed it tonight. But I mean, this is why Bruce loves having a 10 or 11 man rotation. At some point in the year, somebody's going to get hurt or somebody's going to get suspended or whatever, and can you slide guys in? And for most teams in Auburn's spot, the answer would have been, we're only going to play 7 guys now instead of 8. We're just going to shorten the rotation. And Bruce he did it to Chris Moore a little bit, but we're still playing 9 guys 12 plus minutes and 8 guys 20 plus minutes or something like that. So our depth continues to be something that helps us moving forward, even with Jalen out.
Is there any players that you want to talk about that we didn't? I mean, we talked MVP Aiden, we talked MVP Chaney, we talked Broom, we talked CBM. Do you want to talk KD and his return to Athens?
Yeah, I mean, quick shout out to Lior. I thought Lior was really good. Hit 2 good driving shots, like going to the
I
rim.
just he's not a great player, but I love when the other team thinks that they can do
Yeah.
something to Lior, and it rare, especially on defense, it's great because they really think they can pick on him, and they will like mess up their entire offensive structure to get the ball to where he's defending the guy, just for them to get stonewalled. I mean, they score every once in a while, but even when they do score, it feels like didn't go the way they thought it was going to go. And then on offense too, like Lior came in with some foul trouble early on and then immediately scored. But it felt like almost too that they were like, yeah, sure, let Lior drive. Immediately score, and they were like, okay, maybe not. Like,
Yeah, no, it's a great call out. I got 3 little things looking at it. Denver, I thought Denver was really, really good, but he was probably the biggest victim of the whistle. I thought all 3 of his fouls were terrible calls. He hit his shots. His shot looks so smooth. He has turned into just, I can't get over how good of a defender he's become on the ball in this league. Like, he stays in front of his dude, and I was mad on his behalf of the foul trouble he got in, and then he was a victim in the second half. KD just played really, really well, and we'll talk about him in a second. Any thoughts on Denver?
he hit some good threes. That's what we want him to do early on in the game when Aiden was shooting an off balance through. I'm like, Denver's shooting really well from three. Like every shot should be going to Denver. We just don't always get it to him, but he's played great defense, like which has been something we were afraid of. Our guards not playing great defense, and he's played great defense. You're right; those fouls were terrible. They were really like probably the worst fouls that got
Touch
called.
fouls.
Like, yeah, it was really like, are you kidding me? Fouls when a game was that tight already, or like when there's already fouls on other players. So I don't know. I was saying he stepped up. We were looking for somebody to step up. Ends up we had 3 other guys step up even more. But I think, Denver got that MVP and scored 20 plus not that long ago. I think if he got the right amount of shots, he would be able to do that again. He's just playing really good team basketball. And that's it ends up, we didn't think that's what it needed to be, but it ends up that's exactly what we needed him to be with other guys on the team that are stepping up. So thank God he's like chill, play great defense, hit open threes. Amazing. That's what we want out of you.
I think one of my thoughts in the aftermath of the Jalen injury was that we lost an adult. in the room. Like you can say what you want about Jalen. Maybe he's too chill.
I
Maybe he
like
doesn't have,
this. The
but
combo of like fiery players versus players that are just like do their job.
yeah.
They're not going to freak out and get a double tech or any kind of tech, and they're going to just keep the game calm when things are going a little crazy.
I mean, I don't know your thoughts. I think it's safe to say after that Kentucky game that what I was telling my coworkers at work this week was like, man, when things go bad, like Bruce's teams are so tightly strung and they play so hard and they're crazy and they do all this stuff. But when things start going south, like it can get really bad in terms of shot selection, in terms of body language, whining, complaining,
Yeah. You have a
and
lot of
and they,
emotional players, people that play with their emotion on their sleeve, and it works really
yes.
good when it works good. The hype levels can get so high, but the it's manic a little bit, you
Well,
know.
and everybody hear me when I say I adore the fact that our team plays hard. Like people, Jay Billis talks about Auburn leads the country along with Houston in effort. Like we just play really hard, and I don't take that for granted when you watch some of these other teams play. Our guys care and they play their tails off for their coaches staff, which I think means a lot. But Jalen is an adult in the room that's been around, and I think Denver amazingly to me has just you're right, he's a guy, he doesn't need shots, he doesn't need a ton for him, he just makes really solid contributions. We've seen him as a third point guard when we need him. You don't
Efficient.
underestimate
Both those players
pace.
are efficient, you
Yes,
know.
efficient, and like Leor's like that. You were talking about Leor, like just guys that can go play and not be a liability wherever you put them, and I think Denver fills that role even
They're
more
not
so
they're
without
not
Jalen.
looking for the play, but when the play is there, they
Yes,
execute. And
yes,
like some of our other players, they can like especially KD, he can make great plays, and thank God he can at times, but also he can make real boneheaded stuff and not
yeah,
execute, not
yeah.
hit that open three, go do something just completely off the wall. Like Denver never does that, Jalen never does that, Leor never does that. They wait for their moment and they execute.
Let's talk about KD because he had some rough moments like he does, but man, I thought he was pivotal in that second half like stretch when things were getting dicey. His energy. You talk about Denver struggles to finish at the rim. Aiden struggles to finish at the rim. KD is probably our best guard at finishing at the rim and attacking the basket with ferocity and his defense. And he was really in a couple guys' head, and we've seen it so many times over the years. I thought he was terrific in this game overall.
He after talking about how Ribs and Whiskey Elliott was called uh Chad Baker Mazara like part cat, 70% cat, because it was like crazy his control in the air to finish the way he did. He would just take the contact, wait a minute for things to adjust in the air, and have his arms just so far out there that he could finish these things. KD's like almost the opposite. He's like 70% cannonball. He's like his density level. He's like super dense and like curls up into like a ball through contact. And like, I don't know, it works like half the time. It doesn't work. He never gets a foul call. CBM gets the foul calls almost every single time. KD has so much contact and rarely ever, unless it's in transition. In transition, KD will get a foul call and just never finish. But when he's actually driving the ball, he still does that weird, but he finishes a decent amount of time with never foul call against him. But anyways, that's a long story.
But
I think the big thing with KD Johnson is the last 2 years, it's like giveth and taketh. His stuff this year, every time, even when he does make those boneheaded shots, he did some bonehead stuff tonight too, but it always seems to end the night with us talking about how he ended on the good side every
mhm.
time. Like it just over the whole game, over the 40 minutes, he's ended on the right side every single time. And that's all you can ask for him. And he gives you that little ump that he's like hot sauce. You know, you throw it on top of your food and you want that hot sauce on your food. You don't want too much of it on your food. And this year it's just been just the right amount almost every single game.
Well, it reminds me of Chad Baker Mazar. You said he just does different things. Right? He's a
Yeah.
different type of guy. He's a unique player, and obviously, I think we can all agree there's nobody more unique. And I've never seen anybody like him on a basketball court. But I respect his. He cares. He cares a lot. He plays really hard. He's become a much I sense he is a better leader, especially on the defensive end, especially with that backup unit. I think he is kind of the glue that holds that together a little bit. I think he's been huge. We're not talking enough about his friendship, his camaraderie with Chad Baker Mazara, which I have to imagine has been massive for a new guy coming in, for those guys to click and gel as well as they have coming off the bench all year. And they just both play really, they play their tails off. And that KD, you can say what you want about him, but it's never going to be a lack of effort or heart or desire. And he locked dudes down. He literally got in a stance and was not letting
Yeah.
anybody by him. He did foul out. I think being back at Georgia, getting a chance from the Auburn fans on the road and the place he used to play at, like I'm just happy for him. That was a great performance, and it doesn't have to be 15 points, right? You can
That's another
affect
thing I
the
was about to
game.
say. He went down back to Athens, and we have seen him go back to Athens already once or twice, and him play really great games, score a lot, be a focal point of the offense during that one. It feels like, oh, but the other players know it's KD's game. This one, that sets him up maturity level. He played a
Mm-hmm.
really solid game, and he didn't make it about him, and we won by 21 points. You know,
Yeah.
and like we know as fans of Auburn, we know he had a really good game, a solid, efficient game that helped lead the team, and it didn't have to be a loud KD game. That's another part of this. It's like he's been like there's so many analogies we've heard for KD over the last couple years. Our psycho, the Tasmanian devil, the give it, the take it. Now we're adding a hot sauce thing here. It's like he just hasn't been overpowering the food over the last year when he has in the past, and like it hasn't been it's just the right buffalo wings instead of the extra spicy one everybody's talking about, and you don't always get the right, like the same with hot sauce. You don't always get, like, some bites are spicier than others, and some bites didn't get the hot sauce drip just right. But overall, the meal was fantastic.
And two of the biggest shots of the game too. We talk about it all the time with him. Just hit the open threes.
Oh,
Just
that's
please.
huge. Yeah.
And he hit two probably of the biggest shots of this game that I remember, of just some
Well,
open threes that really swung things in our direction.
and it's another, like, that's what we've been saying too for a while. Hit the open threes and also stop taking so many contested ones. He still took some contested ones. It just like shows
But
too, like, see, you can hit the open ones. Just take the open ones. He took one or two pretty bad contested
he did.
ones, which
But it's
sometimes you
not
have
as
to,
bad.
but yeah,
It's
it's not as
not as
bad.
bad as the last couple of years.
Well,
It
I'll
really.
tell you this too. Not only did they were contested, but they weren't some of the worst KD contested, where KD like dribbles the ball for a solid 15 seconds. And at this point, the entire away game bench is like, he's shooting, he's not even looking anywhere else. Just stay up on the 3-point line. And he
He's
didn't do
got
that
that
at least.
look.
His contestants were kind of like he got trapped a bit and just said, fuck it, or screw it, or whatever.
Oh, I got to put the explicit tag on this.
I'm usually so good about it. I'm usually so good about it. I cuss a lot, and on my other stuff, I cuss a lot. This, my bad, Matt.
I was gonna.
At
Hey,
least it wasn't the hey. At least it wasn't the real F word. At least it was the
that's
acceptable
right.
F
That's
word.
right. That's right. Let's get into the point
Well, since
guard
it's already
thing.
explicit, I can say it all I want now. Dylan
Yeah,
Cardwell
now
hit an amazing "fuck you" three at the end of the game that I loved, because he went up there. We were already up 21, so it's fine, or 20 or 17 or whatever it was. And then they left him all alone up there. And I think it was like midway through the shot clock. And I was just like, yeah, do it. And he trained that thing. It was just the best, like, yes, screw the refs, screw Georgia. Bam, that's us. And then, like, some of that you can ride that wave.
Yeah, no, and he almost hit one to go to 100, like you said, maybe early in the episode.
It
It would have been
almost banked in. It almost banked in. And Aiden had just gotten a bank not that long ago
yeah,
before that. And I was like, thank God for that bank from Aiden too, by the way. Because it's like we were already like, yes, get on fire, turn the corner. I feel like something about that bank three is gonna be like, yeah, I can't miss nothing now.
yeah. Well, it's a confidence builder. He got to do a little, if you're old enough, the Michael Jordan shoulder shrug, like, I don't know,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm just that
Let's
good.
talk about the point guards, because you and I have dis we're not disagreeing that Aiden has struggled and he's missed a lot of shots from three. But I think one of the most interesting things about this team, haven't I mean, if we took a step back and remember preseason, we were like, how good are our guards, especially our point guards? And I think you've been on this. Like, do we have good enough guards to win us games? And but then Trey and Aiden were like, their assist to turnover ratio is amazing. Our team ball movements was so good early in the year. And we started with Aiden starting, and then we flipped to Trey, and Trey's played really well most of the year. Like, I'm pro Trey Donaldson as my namesake, but lately they've struggled. They've struggled a little more. Maybe it's the scouting, maybe it's all. But coming into this game, because I kind of think we have to talk about both of them, right? And their roles on this team. Like, coming into this game, I think you and a lot of people, because Aiden's been missing and forcing some shots, were like, hey, we gotta, like, the coaches, whether it's coaches or himself, or like somebody's gotta, like, get him to just be a passer, be a facilitator. And the problem
Well,
with that I've had is, like, that's taking away his fastball. That's taking away what he makes him a 5-star recruit. And selfishly, great to we need his offensive threat. But just what were
I
your
mean,
thoughts on Aiden going into the game? And let's talk out like how
we
we've been using him, and and him and Trey in that dynamic of starting. Like, what do you think about all that?
there's been this like term that other teams have used that like play well in March, and it seems like almost like pseudoscience, but this like March adjustment, this late February adjustment, and we talked about it in the Kentucky pod. Like maybe the one silver lining of Jalen going out is that when you get your head, like the same thing happened to us in the year that we won the SEC 2 years ago with Jabari and Walker. If you don't make an adjustment, if you don't get better through the season, you're just trying to hold on to get that ring. It's worth it for sure. But like you can just get on film and not adjust enough because you just don't want to tinker with anything. You don't want to think about anything but getting that ring. This is the kind of thing where like I was all for ready for Aiden to just stop shooting. Just stop shooting. You're killing us. It's like absolutely garbage percentage from three. And if that's all you got, then just stop altogether, you know. But like for him to come out and hit him like he did tonight is perfect. It's what we need. Like it's one of those things that could take us to the next level if he can keep doing it. I mean, at this point, he has to do it if Jalen's not going to play. I know CBM had an amazing night. I know Chaney Johnson had a good night. Like, if they can keep doing that, then yeah, maybe you don't need Aiden quite as much. But like, I just don't think we can rely on Chaney
Mm-hmm.
Johnson doing that all the time. And you can't rely on CBM to be that good. I think you can start relying on CBM to get his, but maybe not that good, especially with he's got more shots at minutes. But yeah, Aiden's gonna have to start hitting those shots now that Jalen's out. And maybe that's we got forced into it tonight, but you could look back theoretically. I mean, we might just be like completely
Yeah.
looking silly by next game if we score 50 points against
Right.
Tennessee and get crushed.
Right.
But like, that's what you need. You need Aiden to turn the corner at this point to make a March adjustment, to have a chance at the SEC, to have a chance at playing well in March. So I'm happy with it. Interesting that Trey only played 12 minutes. I think I saw some text messages that people thought Trey didn't play that well. I don't know if I like remember thoroughly him not playing well. He just didn't play a lot, it looks like. And then like I don't remember him making any plays. He didn't score. Yeah, 0-2 from the field, 0-1 from three. I just don't really remember him doing much. I do remember that we played Aiden more than I thought we would. There's a couple of rotations where it was like, okay, time to take Aiden out, and they just didn't. So I don't know what to say about that. I mean, maybe it's part of that like Atlanta, Georgia thing where they left the Georgia boy in. I don't know, but he played well.
Well, I would love to see the plus minus because it to me it felt like we were getting really good looks when Aiden was running the show on the floor in the first half. Because people are going to forget Aiden was 1 of 5, 1 of 4 from three in the midway through the second half. So this was a weird late game. To be fair, Aiden hit a couple of big ones when the game was still in doubt that I don't want to like discredit, but they were open looks in rhythm, like you would say, like they were in the flow of the offense. They were good, and I hope that opens it up for him because I don't think we need him to be uh incredible, but we do need him to be a shooter, and we need him to be able to bail us out of some possessions. And he has the capability to hit any shot on the floor. He really does. I know it hasn't seemed like it, but that's his superpower, right? He's
I mean,
not
we
great at
were
the rim. He's a good free throw shooter. He's become a much better defender, but he is a shooter. He is really the only player on this team. Well, I guess CBM in a way and Denver in a way are shooters, but Aiden's that ball, like he can get his own shot. And I think that's what people struggle with. We've moved the ball so well, and it's like, well, that's not a good shot. Well, for Aiden and his game, if you've watched him in high school and stuff, that kind of is his thing. And the hard part for the
that's
coaches,
the
I'm sure, has
that's
been
been
like,
the
how do we manage that?
that's been the issue though, and I think that's something he started cutting out in the second half that made him play better. And like I said, this might be a one-off thing. I don't know. Like you're right. Like he didn't start strong either because we were getting into it in the text message group about it early because he still plays at times like he's in high school. Like you watch one of these high school highlight tapes where the guy just walks up the court and just jacks up a long three and it
Well,
goes in and it's good for him in high school, or just like any inch is enough for you. When you're the absolute 5-star guy like that, that's his size and like hitting threes, that is a good shot. Sure, shoot as many as you want, really. Go make a play, hit that shot. But like, we didn't need that. Same with the passes he's been trying to make for a while now. These like really far up the court passes, these long, like on the other side of the court passes. And he only had like one of those this game that actually worked. But like, so like he's cut out that a little bit. I think he's made some more crisp passes, I believe. He's just like,
he's been good for one really bad pass and one or two really bad shots a game. But
yeah.
my argument would be we have some other players on this team who also do that. So I want to make
Yeah.
sure we're not holding Aiden to some standard that
It
we have
hurts.
Bruce hasn't held anybody to his whole career.
Sometimes it feels like it hurts more when it's the point guard because then it feels like you didn't even get started, you know. And like
Yep.
Jared and even Wendell to a certain extent at one point felt like, okay, we'll take a couple of those a game because we know that like we've seen games get blown wide open because you took that and like absolutely turned a game around. We have not seen that from Aiden yet. That he can hit one of those that just like turns a game around. So that's part of it. If he had two or three of those during the year already, it would be like, all right, those are worth the risk sometimes. Those like jackpot style threes. And like the
I
other
think
part is you just the way
we forget what he was doing the first 12 games of the year. I know it's
he
non-conference. I know
didn't
it's not
even
the
like really
same.
did the first 12 either. Like he did against the Baylor game and he
He
hit
had
some
20.
threes.
He had 20 something in India against Indiana. He had 20 something against I mean I was at some of really good games where he looked every bit of an elite shooter.
When it goes in, it looks really good.
He
Like
looks
it looks like
good.
it should go in. I think if he can cut out those early shot clock off balance threes and just wait for the ball to come back to him, because we've seen how many times have we seen in Bruce's offense. To be fair, it's way better this year, this 5-out
Yep.
offense and some of the players
Yep.
we have. But a lot of times what'll happen is it'll get passed around and then it'll be late shot clock and somebody's just got to make a play. Trey has done it several times this year. Aiden's going to get your 3-point percent. You're going to get your playmaking 3-point shot time. Just wait till it's at the end because you're going to end up with two or three of those a game probably. And then like just hit the open ones when they come to you. So just cut out those crazy like star making ones. I mean, that's what we saw in the second half. The ones he did make were pretty good shots, right? Like none of those were like, I mean, there's like one step back three that he made
Yeah, I
that
was
they
gonna
got
say
turned
the
into a
first
two.
one,
But
the
yeah,
first one was a one-on-one step back three
that
that
was
you would
like,
have
that's
hated
not a
to
good
see.
shot, but all right, it went in.
And then the bank was a bad shot too. So he had a
Yeah.
couple that he was feeling a little bit. But again, like you said, the way it happened tonight, the confidence building, and I think for him, you've talked about, he feels too stressed out. Like he
Yeah.
cares. It's bothering him that his thing that he's supposed to bring to the table isn't working out. Hopefully it just lets him, he needs to keep his legs under him. He flails his legs out trying to get fouled. And that's what you do when you don't think you're going to make the shot. You know, he needs to
Yeah.
go when he's open from three, though. I want to be very clear. I've been clear when he's been terrible. Him coming off a screen, open into a 3-pointer at the line, I want him taking it every time because he is that kind of weapon that we just don't have.
Yeah, I'm mostly in agreement with you. I was definitely getting to the point where it was like, yes, if it gets passed to you and you are open, shoot the three. But if you're dribbling up the court and coming off a screen, maybe drive it, maybe pass it early in the shot clock. But now I'm like, all right, like we kind of without Jalen, we kind of do need you to get on at some point. So
You
it,
you were on the money on the shots thing, and I know I've talked about this. You've talked about this. You know, people get so caught up in one player. I think I was less stressed about losing Jalen than almost our entire fan base, which is ironic because I'm a huge Jalen guy. But if you've watched enough basketball, it's just other guys get the shots, and basketball is such an efficiency percentage based sport. That's why we focus on all these nerdy stuff. And you saw tonight, like no one guy can replace what Jalen does. And I will admit that at times it made me feel uncomfortable that we didn't have a good shooting threat at the four. I think it clogs it's going to allow teams like Tennessee to really play us differently when you don't have that threat. But we got 25 points from Leor, Cheney, and Dylan. Like from the others, I would say, offensively. No offense to Cheney, but until Cheney proves he can do that consistently, he's an other to me. He's not one of the
yeah,
six scoring options. And when we get some quality points from those guys, and you get Denver hitting some shots, you get KD hitting some shots, you get Aiden, that's what it's going to take. It takes the group of 10 more than Cheney Johnson and Chris Moore and Dylan Cardwell to replace Jalen. That's just not how basketball works. I think tonight is a good example of what that can look like. Now, can they do it in Knoxville against the best team in the league? I'm not sure. We'll see.
I'm not a betting man on that one. I would not bet on that one. I don't know. I think this was fun and all, but yeah, we could maybe turn towards the looking at the SEC if you want.
Yep.
I
Yep.
think this was coming off a bye too. I think you need to look at that Florida game and how bad they blew us out in Gainesville. They were coming off a bye, so I hope that we did some things tonight that we'll still be tinkering with that'll throw off Tennessee too. But now they will have the film on this game to see what our rotations look like, to see what players are playing like, and know where people need to zero in on. So we'll see. Maybe they'll still be thrown off. So
I'm reading.
Kentucky beat Alabama tonight pretty badly. I think they scored 117 maybe against
Yes.
Alabama in
Yes.
Lexington. That was a big one for us. It's been exhausting this year. I still don't want to admit it, that Alabama is the most likely SEC champ right now. They could be back to back. And it was one thing for them after we had won it with our star guy. And the next year they win it with their star guy that's helped murder somebody. But it was like, and then it was like, okay, well, they basically did what we did, except for with murder. And then for this to happen this year when we were looking good, and they don't have that great of a team. It doesn't feel like, it just feels like there's no great team in the SEC, and so they just keep winning, and good for them. Like we didn't keep winning, and they did, and so I don't know. It feels
Well,
like they're still most likely to at least have a share of the SEC title. It's gonna be really frustrating if they do.
correct. Just to be clear, we have a 2 games better than them record overall this season. So it is a little incorrect that we have not kept winning. And we are 1 game behind them. So as we speak right now, we are 1 game behind first place Alabama. Tennessee is beating A&M by 15 at home in the second half. So it looks like Tennessee and Alabama are going to be tied for first. And then South Carolina and Auburn are going to be 1 game behind, tied for third. And then Kentucky and Florida are tied for fifth, only 2 games out of first with 4 games to play. So 6 teams within 2 games of each other with 4 to go. I mean, you're right. Alabama is in a great spot to share the title because they're in tied for first. But they still have to play Tennessee again. Tennessee goes to Tuscaloosa, and then I think and Tennessee still plays Kentucky, and Alabama still plays, I think, Florida again.
We got an
So,
Alabama goes to Ole Miss on Wednesday. That's definitely a potential loss, but they shout out to them. They've won a lot of these like 50-50 games. It felt like the games like we lost like at Mississippi State, we lost in Gainesville, that were like those should have been kind of 50-50. They're away. It's a worse team, but it's away, and they've won those, and we've lost a couple.
yeah.
But at Ole Miss, then they got Tennessee in Tuscaloosa. That one feels like, just like with ours, just like at Tennessee, it feels like the SEC is going to swing on these 2 games, Auburn, Tennessee, and Alabama, Tennessee. And they got it at home and we got it away. Then they go at Gainesville. We saw what happens. It can happen in Gainesville. And Florida, I don't know if this is, I don't know, let me know. It feels like they're going to really want that one to make sure they make the NCAA tournament. So
They're
that'll be
in.
interesting.
They're in a good. They're really good.
And then they finished the year with Arkansas, which we finished the year at home. They finished at home with Arkansas. And we finished at home with Georgia. So that one's probably going to be double wins for us. So it's really coming. They've got some hard games. Those last 3 games, the next 3 games for them are tough.
And here's the thing. I was hoping Tennessee. So Florida could have really done us a favor. Just to be clear, if Florida they lost in overtime in Tuscaloosa this week. If they had won, we would be controlling our own destiny to win the SEC on Wednesday in Knoxville. Like that's how tight this thing is. And if you're looking ahead for us, look, Wednesday's really hard. I want to spend a few minutes talking about it before we get done. But then after that, it's Mississippi State at home, who's okay. You would hope we would handle them at Neville. It's at what?
Sorry, I just like, holy crap. Tennessee's into the season is absolutely brutal. I know they're in the race too, right? They're
tied for first. They're in first place.
They're tied for first. Okay, yeah.
They're in first place.
Man, if they pull this off, they deserve the SEC. Auburn comes to Knoxville, then they go away to Bama, away to South Carolina, and at home against Kentucky. They play the top teams of the league to end the year. All those teams are the top teams in the league to end the year. That's really something.
And we, again, after this week, and let's just imagine a world, Jackson, where we somehow go into Knoxville and win with Stephen Pearl's shout out. What if we go beat Tennessee again in a key spot?
We've had their number.
Then we have Mississippi State at home, at Missouri, who is winless.
The worst team in the SEC.
And Georgia at home. Like we have to go do it, but that is a very manageable potential 3-0 finish for us. So the sucky part is if we could have just not lost one, like that Mississippi State game on the road that we could have had, like we would be in a really, really good position. We're not in great position, but I'm just saying the win today earns us the opportunity. If we go in there and win in Knoxville, it's game on, and we might have the best shot.
Yeah, we had a bit of a Super Bowl moment when Alabama came to town. We had a bit of a Super Bowl moment with Kentucky with College Game Day. We're on to our 3rd Super Bowl style, but that's like when you're in it, when you're in the SEC race, all of a sudden you get a lot of fun, big games, a lot of tension, so yeah, we
look.
We got one of them. We screwed up a second one. We'll see if we can get 2-1 in these big style games.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've had Tennessee's number over the years, but you and I are very sober minded about this. This is a brutally hard. They are just as good as home as we are statistically. I would argue they're probably a better overall talented team. They're super old. They have a bunch of veterans that we've played a lot. We have some, last year we had that somehow we went on the road and battled them and came down to that 40 something to 40 something finish that we could have won but barely lost. But we beat them at home when we brought them back. This is a Bruce, again, just step back. Bruce Pearl going into Knoxville with a team without one of their best players, probably going in, and he could just completely not eliminate Tennessee from title contention, but that would do a big. You mentioned their schedule. Tennessee needs this game on Wednesday against Auburn.
Yeah.
And it's a great opportunity for us with nothing to lose. Like, we're ring chasing because we're a game out of first place and we play first place on Wednesday. But I just think it's a great opportunity. Maybe we can hit some shots like tonight and just play with nothing to lose and go win.
Yeah, I wonder if there's something to that with like Jalen going out, that they're like,
oh,
back to underdog mode. No one thinks you can pull this off without Jalen in the roster. Like, you backups, like they don't think you can do it. Sure,
yeah.
they whatever you like. Cheney Johnson, you did that against Georgia.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see if you can do it in Knoxville on a Wednesday night in Knoxville.
Right.
So, there's some really good players on that team too. You were talking about Tennessee. There's this guy Dalton Connect. Is it Dalton Necht or Connect? And he might be the SEC Player of the Year. Am I right about that?
He is.
Yeah, and he's just been dominant guard for them. They've got
and here's the problem: he plays the three.
CBM, so, time to step up on defense.
CBM's length could give him some trouble, but Connect is like an NBA body. Like, if you haven't watched him much and you haven't watched Tennessee, that dude is a big, strong wing, but he's white. And that kind of catches you off. He's like the 6'6" white guy on the wing. He's an incredible shooter. They use him in all sorts of ways.
We think CBM's a cool story, come from San Diego State and then a junior college. We think Cheney Johnson's a cool story coming out of the D2. Dalton Connect came from Northern Colorado and then Northeastern Junior College. And this is his first year in D1, right?
And he's probably going to be a lottery pick in the NBA.
Crazy. That is so crazy. I mean, I wish I had enough time to really sit down and watch all the SEC games. I do watch a decent amount of them, but like I have not get to see him as much as I probably should. And then they have
the difference for them is that they've added him, and he's averaging 24 a game in SEC play, 24 a game, and they've added him.
And Jonai's 16, right? Jonai's 16, and that's pretty impressive.
They've added him to that solid defensive, tough, experienced. Tennessee's been good every year with Rick Barnes. They haven't been good at the tournament. They haven't won a ton, but they are still that really solid team. And their Achilles heel was always that they don't always shoot well, and the offense can get a little weird and stagnant. Well, this year they've still lost a lot of games. They're not unbeatable. South Carolina went in there and beat them in Knoxville. So it's possible, but they are just a really solid, old, experienced team that I think it's probably the toughest matchup to me on our schedule of anybody we play. Maybe Alabama because of how well they space it and shoot it, but I think this is going to be a really tough game. But it's a classic scenario of like, nobody expects Auburn to win this game. I don't expect it. No, like I don't think anybody does. No. So it's a great opportunity to flip the script. Like, if we win this game, if we're not in the driver's seat for the league title, we're really close to it.
They have a guard. They have two guards that are really annoying too. It's like Keith Ziegler, really small point guard that's hard to guard, hit some good shots, just like 5'10" style, really quick guy. We've seen some problems with in the last couple of years. And they still have Santiago Vescovi, super annoying, crafty guy. He came in, like, I think his first game of the year was like 2 or 3 years ago against us in Auburn. Was just tough to watch. From Uruguay, played professionally in Uruguay. Still don't know how that's allowed. I believe Kentucky also has a player that played professionally in Serbia, maybe, or some sort in Eastern Europe. So I don't know how this keeps happening and why we don't get to have professional players come play for our teams. But, it's a different day and age, I guess, these days. Can you walk us through, we're talking about like winning the SEC, but another big one is getting the 4 buys in the SEC tournament. What's that looking like if we lose to Tennessee? Are we still like, they're up really nipping at us? It's like Tennessee, and Alabama pretty secure in their top 4. I mean, I know Tennessee's got all
No,
these tough games. No,
not
you don't think so?
really.
Okay.
So that's what I was trying to explain to everybody. The double bye is the top four. There's 6 teams within 2 games of each other, and we are smack dab in the middle. Meaning, and we do not have a tiebreaker against number 5 and number 6, Kentucky and Florida. So we do against South Carolina, who we're tied against right now. So it's just going to be a free for all these last 2 weeks of trying to for us to hang on. I tend to think if we go 3-1 and take care of our business in the other 3 games, that we'll be okay in the top 4. But no one is really even that close to guaranteed of a top 4 spot when you just mentioned Alabama and Tennessee's schedule.
I believe Ben and Ryan are going to be on a Tennessee podcast tomorrow night. Ben put it in there. Vawlin out, Vawlin out. So check that out whenever that comes out. I'm sure Ben will post about it on the socials. So you'll get a double dose. You'll get Jackson and Matt on the post game. You'll get Ryan and Ben on a Tennessee podcast. That'll be interesting. So if you didn't like enough, if you need more breakdown than that for the big matchup on Wednesday, you're going to get even more of it if you check out that podcast. Ben or Matt, any other thoughts? Anything you want to go through? Like that was a fun victory. Like I had a good time.
It was great. I would love a scenario where if we can't win the SEC, South Carolina does somehow. Like that's the only team I really like. That's maybe Florida. If Florida could win out, and
Sadly, I'm anybody but Bama at this point. Like
I
it
root for
would
Tennessee.
take. I think I have Alabama's schedule pulled up here. Yeah,
Ole Miss.
at Ole
You said at
Miss.
Ole Miss. It's worth noting Ole Miss went to 6-8 in SEC
Oh,
play with the loss today.
that is something I wanted to talk about because I
Oh
vaguely
yeah,
mentioned it early
and
on. Flanagan is continuing his tour of like not having a great attitude and not doing so hot. Anyways, like he like elbowed a guy in the face, like almost punched the guy, it seemed like maybe punched him. You'll have to go back, you have to look at the videos up for yourself, guys. But it was definitely it was not good. It was not a basketball player move coming down the court. So he might get it. Like I think an Alabama player got a suspension over the last couple of days for doing a non-basketball style thing. Same guy that tried to step on Jani's hand, which you thought was dubious. I think he really aimed for Jani's hand in that one. Anyways, I think Flanagan's going to get suspended for this one, and I think it's just another.
and
He's
he
just
would
been
be
so
out for the Alabama
frustrated.
game in
Oh,
that case.
I was kind of cheering for the suspension. Now I'm not. I didn't think about that, but that'd be tough.
Well, you just have to hope. I mean, Alabama, you mentioned it. Their offense has just been. They still scored 95 today in Lexington, and they lost by 22. But they score, man. They play such a unique, hard to guard style that it's hard to. I think that's what helps them in those kind of games. I think it's a great point. Their 3 losses are in Lexington, in Neville, and in Knoxville. That's the 3 conference games they've lost. Those are tough road
Yeah.
trips. And you're
And you
right.
know
If
that
they,
at Ole Miss atmosphere,
yeah,
in Oxford, any on a Wednesday night in Oxford, who can win?
I mean, our goal has to be, I mean, ultimately for us, can we find a way? There are mathematically still ways for us to win if we lose in Knoxville with the schedules you mentioned. But for us, it's really, can we win in Knoxville with this team without Jalen, which would be amazing. And then after that, everybody else is going to beat up on each other and lose. And if we can get through Knoxville unscathed and then win our last 3, that would be a really good year. I don't know how anybody could look if we finish, what would that be? 13-5 in the SEC, and we're a top 4 seed in the NCAA tournament, and we get a double bye. I mean, and we were picked 6th or 7th in the league. Like, I know it's not winning the title potentially, but that's a dang good season for us.
In 2018, we were a 5 seed and won the. Oh, I guess we tied the SEC with Tennessee that year, right? I mean, in my head, we straight out won that thing.
Well, 18, we were a 4 seed when we won the SEC. 19, we were a 5 seed when we did not win the SEC, when we went to the Final Four.
And we were a 5 seed last year, right?
And we were a 8 or 9 seed last year.
Really?
Okay. Yeah. Because we played Houston in the second round. And they were number 1 seed.
Anyways, long story to be short, to say like, well, we could end up a 4 seed and not even have a share of the SEC title, and that's just where the SEC is at these days. It's just a strong conference. So, anyways,
we're top 7 in KenPom. I mean, we're a top. We are in all those metrics. I know the metrics can be a little. I'm a metrics guy. Not everybody's a metrics guy, but everything all year, very consistently, shows us as one of those teams to look out for in March. All these metrics of where national champions come from, of being good on both ends, of having, a lot of the strengths that we have. Like, we'll see. We haven't won a ton of big games. Like we've talked, we've lost 6, but Alabama's lost 8, and Tennessee's lost 6. We have the same record as Tennessee, even if they win tonight this year. I mean,
A lot of it comes down to hasn't been like star-studded, big. Like it doesn't feel like we have that like same narrative that we had with Jabari and Walker, where it was like unbeatable players kind of thing. So and now
right.
Jalen out, but you never know. It like a lot of times these narratives of like what a team is and all that, like it comes later, comes when you win something, and then all of a sudden,
Yes.
of course, it was going to happen like that. We had this and we had that, and we were blowing
Final
teams
four
out left
team.
and right.
Final four team was 7-7 in SEC play, um, on the bubble, with 4 games to go. So like if we were to lose, we'll
We
be
lost
10 and
at
6,
Georgia, it would have been a thing.
or we'll be 10 and what would we be if we lose? We'll be 10 and 4. No, 10 and 5.
We're 10-4 right now, so it'd be 10-5. We
We have
lost to
4
Tennessee.
games left, don't we? So we're
Yep.
10 and 4. So we're 3 games better right now in SEC play than our Final Four team was. So I mean, like,
Yeah.
who knows?
All right. Well, War Eagle Matt. It was a fun one.
Hey, guess what, Jackson? We're going to the NCAA tournament for the 3rd straight season. Tonight probably locked it up. Even if we lose the rest of our games, we're going dancing. And next year,
The
dare we
elusive
say,
four.
the elusive 4 that if you've been following us from the beginning, we might have a shot to get it. So that's an exciting thing too.
Yeah. Top 25 program stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, it was fun, Jackson. We're having fun. Big game against Tennessee. Let's take our shot and see what we got.
War Eagle, folks.
Where you go?
Thanks live for sticking around here.
I was
It's
gonna
always
say
fun to have a couple people in here to comment on stuff and get different takes on
number
everything.
5 in Ken Palm. Wow.
We're number 5 in Kempa. And then who's above us? Is Tennessee and Alabama still above us?
Let's check. Ben's our stat guy tonight, just dishing us great takes. We're behind Houston, Purdue, UConn, and Arizona.
Wow. And then
Here are
I
these
sent y'all another stat today. Like we haven't lost any Q2 or Q3 teams. We're only one of like 5 or 6 teams that hasn't done that.
What if I told you that we have the 4th ranked metric-wise defense in America?
Wow. It doesn't feel like it. Like I know
It's all
we're
those
playing well, but
all those block parties, man. I couldn't believe that we have the top.
is Houston number 1?
Yeah, yeah.
They're
We have the
fun to watch.
top field goal percentage defense in the SEC. Like teams are making the least percentage of shots against us of anybody.
Wow. It's different because we've had a lot of teams that get the other team to turn the ball over a lot. But I guess then we've had the Jabari Walker team that like broke the record for blocks and things, and this team just plays really solid defense. It's just not as like stylish as past ones, I guess.
Shout out Pocket Watch appreciates us. We appreciate you, Pocket Watch. You're
Ben
always
says
here. You're here more regularly than our hosts. So
Ben
shout out
says
to you.
Ben says, "Are we having fun yet?" I usually been ending the podcast with that, but I started it with that, so I just I didn't feel like we had to say it 10 times. I kept saying we're having fun. So
I mean, we had the Alabama game, which was awesome. But really, other than that, tonight feels like the most fun game,
But
right?
it shouldn't be because the Georgia wasn't like some big opponent, but it was with Jalen out and seeing all these players step up and with the refs and everything, it was definitely, I said at the start, one of the most impressive wins of the year. So I think people that didn't watch this one and just see the score, they'll think they don't need to watch this one because it's not that big of a deal. But I think this was definitely one of the most fun watches of the year.
I agree.
That's all I
It was
want.
fun.
That's all I want out of Auburn basketball. I don't expect us to win this or that all the time. It's just like give me some fun, memorable games to talk about and fun times to bond with friends and get a little jaunt in your step.
Yeah, yeah, no, this came out of nowhere too. It's a classic expectations game, right? Like we were like, oh, Jalen's out, we're going on the road, the refs are terrible, they're taking it from us. And then those are the best moments in life, right? When you don't expect something good to happen and it does.
That Tennessee one's going to be weird because I could say all day that I don't believe we're going to win and that I'm already like mindset's all over it. I'm just talking about top 4 seeds now, blah, blah. But when that game starts and every little shot and we keep it close or this or that could have happened, I'll be driving up the
They
walls.
they just clamped down so hard. I mean, A&M has 39 points with 11 minutes left in the game. And I worry about us scoring, kind of like last year when we just couldn't score up
Just
there.
I just
I don't
hope
know.
CBM can be. I mean, like tonight was just so impressive. But I mean,
70% of that, 60% of that, 70% of that, you
I
know?
just like it's been my thing for a while. When things do get clamped down, do we have that guy that can just like break the clamp? And then I just feel like you see it against our own team sometimes where
And
you clamp a team down, but then if you have that one player that just will not die, it just
the interesting take for you to watch as somebody like I think I've watched more Tennessee than you have. Everybody's playing this connect guy as a 3-point shooter. They're like, hey, we will almost give you a layup and we will play up on you just to try to take away your 3-point space because he has been that good of a shooter. So on one hand, I'm like, well, maybe CBM has that length to bother him on the perimeter, but then I'm scared to death of him getting driven to the basket the entire
yeah.
game. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what the coaches do with that as a matchup, or what Coach Stephen Pearl with the scout does. It'll be interesting.
I'll just hope we don't get in foul trouble again.
Early game Wednesday, 7 o'clock Eastern.
Oh, thank God. I'm so tired of these late ones, but I got lots of stuff going on at work too, so we'll see what I'm even
Yeah,
up
yeah.
to.
Good luck. Good luck this week.
I either have a lot of time or no time at all. Like it's been forever. So, and you're
Yeah.
like you talked earlier, you're such a schedule guy. Like it's got to be frustrating dealing with me because I'm just absolutely like can't schedule more
Well,
than 24 hours in advance.
no, I get it, man. I know it's been a lot going on for
I mean, I
sure.
get some
So
cool stuff out of it. I've done some cool stuff with this like
yeah,
wild, just being ready to do whatever, but it's been
yeah.
stressful. Anyways, War Eagle folks in the chat, you'll have a great Saturday night. Break out the red mount. Let them know we sent you. This was fun.
Absolutely. We'll end the
See you
stream.
guys.